Hey everyone, welcome back to the NPC Dungeon. You may have noticed in the title that I'm doing it again. I used to tell stories a lot on this channel, but I took a break from it for a while, and now we're back. Don't worry, I'll keep releasing a DM advice video every single week as well. I even have a few other plans in the works, so keep your eyes out for that too. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So, what happened? Well, this story starts up where the last one left off. It follows the story of Gum the Ooze Barbarian, Lila the Drow Punk Rocker, V the party's rogue, and Cleo the resident fighter. They had been living in and adventuring through the underground city of Volgaldir. Everyone in the world had been forced to live underground millennia ago after a disastrous event rendered the overworld uninhabitable. The details of said event had since been shrouded in mystery and myth. The dwarves were able to predict this event and moved underground first at the shock and doubt of all else, until everyone else were forced to follow suit, now living in their cities and by their rules. And in that time, technology had skyrocketed, ushering in a kind of cyberpunk fantasy world in which arcane powers fueled the tech the party would come to encounter. And speaking of the party, they actually found their way to the surface while investigating a sharp decrease of the city's ooze population, and what they found was a deserted wasteland. They met Isaac, the party's newest member, came across a settlement of oozes, and found a dome in the distance at which several oozes were being held. At this site, Gum decided to stay behind and help free them, shaving off part of themselves to gift to the party in case anything happened to Gum on the surface. This part would eventually develop its own consciousness, as the rest of the party descended back down below. After all, they had a party to attend. But first, they needed to visit their old friend Roble, an old gnome artificer who was fond of changing his name, and who the party frequently bought explosives from, and who the party had recently taken to calling Robot Counter as per his profession. Except this time, he was nowhere to be seen, so the party delved deep into his shop/house, following a maze of bookshelves and machine parts and robot chassis, until stumbling upon an opening at which Robot Counter sat sprawled out on a rocking chair, asleep with a newspaper in hand. Loose beams and parts of stray machines began falling from the ceiling, waking Counter and alerting the party, until a small stuffed animal gargoyle plopped down before them. And now angry Counter, having been awoken from his nap, explained to the party that he had recently taken up the hobby of making stuffed animals, but he stuffed this one with rocks he carved off of a gargoyle for some reason that he lawfully obtained and would say nothing else about despite the party's confusion. Regardless, this little monstrosity, as he called the stuffed gargoyle, had been causing him more and more problems lately and apparently was a mischievous little thing, but it just sat there innocently and motionless before the party, like, stuffed animals do. V gave him a suspicious look. Okay, sure. If you're trying to get rid of it, I'll take it, said Lila. She lugged the thing back home with her, as heavy as it was. After all, it was full of rocks, as Cleo took a few more explosives off the gnome's hands, and the rest headed off to get some sleep before the event of the next day. Lila awoke to an absolute mess that morning. Her room was in ruins, but the little gargoyle was nowhere to be found. Panicked, she searched and searched until she eventually discovered them rummaging around. Counter had apparently been telling the truth, but more than that, she found the little thing absolutely adorable and named him Goliath. Hardly able to wait to show the others, she took Goliath on a short walk. Rather, she chased and herded Goliath around town like an unruly child. And when she eventually caught up, she found herself having to answer the various questions Goliath posed about the world around them. They asked about the various illusory neon lights, the automatons walking alongside them, and the hovering carriages floating by. And soon, they reached the Illusions End Theater, where the party agreed to meet and where she had auditioned just a few days prior. During the audition, the halfling judge, Cecil, said with a sneer, "Go on, get started, but don't waste my time." But by the time she had finished playing her music, he was stunned and starstruck. She had the job, but more importantly, she would be allowed to play the famous Beard Club Ball, the annual meeting of many of the city's most powerful dwarven leaders. And even more importantly, a figure from V's past, one Lady Reynor, who apparently owned the train the party had been instructed to rob previously, link in the card below if you want to see that one, was to be present, along with Penrose Malath, the sole inheritor of Malath Industries and apparent owner of the weapons and giant wireframe structures the train was transporting, and with whom Lila had a troubled past with as well. The party had learned this one day as they were walking through town and saw a massive illusory holographic transmission in its central square known as Epiphany Plaza, given by none other than Penrose Malath himself. He was announcing the various attendees of this future Beard Club Ball, and this isn't even mentioning the whole slew of head scientists and executives from the nearby Malath complex, rumored to house all sorts of under-the-table experiments. It was clear that something was going on, and the Beard Club Ball was the place to be if you wanted to get to the bottom of it. They convened at the theater, the rest of the party as surprised as Lila was to see the little creature alive and well, and Lila incredibly surprised to see the theater fully decorated in gear and memorabilia inspired by her, with several posters and signed guitars, and you could definitely say that she was thoroughly creeped out. "I don't even remember signing that one," she said as she stepped inside. He clearly got scammed. Cecil skipped along, escorting them to the other performers, including a family of tiefling acrobats who had collapsed on stage before her audition a few days prior, and a gnome magician who seemed quite full of himself despite the fact that magic was pretty commonplace in this world. With this kind of competition, it was no wonder that she seemed so amazing by comparison. person. And now it was these performers' turns to sneer jealously at her as Cecil showed the party to their private hovering carriage, and they sped off to the multi-layered dome structure that was the famous Beard Club meeting place for all the dwarven leaders of the city. Even from this distance, they could make out its outlines and various balconies and archways all the way to the top. Oh well, Layla thought as they drove closer. That's the life of a superstar, I suppose. And that's where I'm ending this one. Believe it or not, I was planning on telling the whole story of the party's time at the ball today, but there were just so many shenanigans that occurred before the actual celebration took place that if I started telling any more, we'd be here for a while. Plus, I don't think I'd be able to do my players justice if I tried to cram it all into one video, as that encounter definitely deserves its own. But I will not be getting back to that story next week. Instead, I will return to it in 2 weeks, and instead tell a story next week that features Screech, the Kenku detective, and very strange journey that he found himself on. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe if you really like it, and if you want to see more, and comment if you have any feedback or just want to say hi. I try to respond as often as I can. I upload new DM advice videos on Fridays and new D&D story videos on Saturdays. Again, thanks so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. Feel free to watch 2 of my previous ones coming up on your screen right about now, and of course, until next time, let's learn something.